So videos of Israeli criminals being thrashed by local Dutch public in Amsterdam after they tore and burnt Palestinian flags on a private property and set a taxi on fire have gone viral. Now, these criminals had come from Israel to support their football team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, in their Europa League match against Ajax. Now, don't ask me why this settler colony built on stolen land is being entertained by European football bosses despite committing genocide in the Middle East for the past 13 months. The same FIFA and UEFA were quick to ban Russian football teams after the Ukraine war started. This is the bloody hypocrisy of these so called civilized people. They will participate in barbarism and slaughtering of innocent women and babies as long as the perpetrators are one of their own and the victims are non white. There is no escaping from this reality. I will return to football and its merits in a bit, but let's dwell on the public anger against Israeli criminals in Amsterdam. There are numerous videos of these Israeli thugs chanting genocidal slogans against Arabs and threatening them with ethnic cleansing. I have uploaded those videos on my Telegram channel. For obvious reason, I can't upload them here. So if you want to watch those videos, please subscribe to my Telegram channel. Details are on the screen. Now that's anti-Semitic, isn't it? Polish migrants to the Middle East threatening native Arabs with ethnic cleansing, and yet there was zero media coverage or public outrage against these thugs. However, as soon as the local population of Amsterdam decided to teach these criminals a lesson for their depravity in a foreign country, Western leaders went into a frenzy. America's morally dead President Joe Biden said the attacks on Israeli thugs, and I quote, echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted. End of quote. Our own David Lammy, a chap who refuses to impose the complete arms ban on Israel, moved with lightning speed to tweet this, and I quote, I am horrified by last night's anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli citizens in Amsterdam. My thoughts are with those injured, their families, and everyone affected. I utterly condemn these abhorrent acts of violence and stand with Israel and Jewish people across the world. End of quote. This is Israel's established toolkit. Have you ever seen David Lammy standing with any other countries as quickly as he stands with Israel? And then when you call him a compromised politician, he doesn't like it. This is precisely what Israel's established toolkit is. When they commit brutalities, ensure the media does not cover their actions. But when there is a retaliation for their criminal acts, activate the global media to portray how Israelis are once again victims. Instruct all Israeli spokespersons such as Joe Biden, David Lammy, and others to issue strong public statements, and then link it to the Second World War and Holocaust to make it sound even more horrible. BBC ran a live page, and its editor, Paul Kirby, I don't think he is related to White House official John Kirby, kept linking the event to the Second World War. This is what he wrote in his piece for the BBC, and I quote, the violence on Thursday night was condemned by leaders across Europe, the US, and Israel. For many, it was especially shocking coming on the eve of commemorations marking Kristallnacht, the 1938 Nazi pogroms against German Jews. 3/4 of Dutch Jews were murdered during the Holocaust and the World War II. End of quote. This is what he wrote. Just imagine. He was so desperate to link it to what happened to Jews in the Second World War. And he didn't stop here. He wrote another piece on another page, BBC page. And this is what he wrote, and I quote, The violence has been felt across Western Europe, especially because for many it was a reminder of what happened all those decades ago in Germany, not long before World War II. End of quote. And if BBC is doing this, how can Sky News be left far behind? A headline by Sky News read, "Anti-Semitic rioters target Israeli football fans as disorder unfolds in Amsterdam." Football fans. No reference to their criminal acts. No reference to how it was they who all started. Once again, this was a part of the Israeli toolkit. Commit criminal act, and when there is a retaliation, play the anti-Semitic card with the help of your compromised media friends. Just imagine, and I really want you to imagine for a second, just imagine the response from the same disgraceful Western politicians and their media outlets if Ajax football fans had traveled to Israel and it was they who has set a taxi on fire, if it was they who had torn and burned Israeli flags and issued threats of ethnic cleansing to Jews. Mind you, these Israelis do not even spare their native Orthodox Jews when they disagree with them. Do you think that these thugs would have spared such an act if it was committed in Israel by the football fans of a visiting team? The role of Amsterdam Mayor Femke Halsema too was disgraceful. She likened the retaliatory attacks on Israeli criminals to Nazi pogrom. But when she was reminded by a reporter about criminal acts committed by Israelis, she said that that was no excuse to attack Israelis, meaning that Israelis can do anything they want and they will still remain victims. Just like they're still victims in the eyes of Western world, even after murdering tens of thousands of Palestinian children and babies and annihilating the whole of Gaza.
She actually also didn't give any context of why this happened suddenly after the match happened, because there was a whole lead up. Thousands of Maccabi supporters were in Amsterdam to attend this match with Ajax Amsterdam, and they were in the city already days, and a lot of things happened in between before this riot started after the match. So this is what the mayor had to say about this, and this is what I asked her in the press conference.
I have a question about the context, because this didn't happen out of the blue last night after the match. You already described there was a Palestinian flag burned, there was one taken off a building, there were songs chanted by the Maccabi fans, also very much insulting to Arabic people. So there was a whole context that led up to the events, which of course are very deplorable, which happened last night. And you're not describing this context. The Maccabi fans were also taking their part. I interviewed just one of them before I came here, and he also called it, yeah, we did some provocations, yes. So he admitted that. So that part of the story is also not being told.
Let me say that we did describe the context. I described it in general terms, and
well, the mayor called these rioters anti-Semitic, and she also said that she could actually understand that there were some connotations and remembrance of the pogroms happening during World War II here. But also the same sort of rhetoric has come from the government in The Hague, the largest ruling party, the Freedom Party of Geert Wilders, the far-right party. He immediately also condemned the violence, but also has been talking about possible deportations of people who have been involved in this violence, in these riots, also saying that multicultural scum, as he described people, that they should not be part of this country. So the rhetoric is very much going in the direction of anti-immigration and anti-Islam, and these are rhetorics that we have been hearing from the far right for many years already, and this is now really coming from the official government policies.
Now let's talk about the hypocrisy of the world and European football bodies. They were so quick to ban Russian teams immediately after the Ukraine conflict started. UEFA had even issued a statement condemning Russia for the Ukraine conflict. Yes, a football body was issuing a statement on a political conflict, military conflict. That's how strongly they had taken the Ukrainian conflict. And that didn't stop here. UEFA Foundation had pledged 1 million euros to assist Ukrainian children. Now I ask you, have you seen such a statement condemning Israel for the Gaza genocide, or banning Israel and its clubs, or even awarding a similar financial package to assist Palestinian children? No. And these bodies want all of us to believe that they care about kicking racism out of football, when the very people, individuals running the game, are deeply racist themselves and white supremacists. Just before the Carabao Cup final between Chelsea and Liverpool in 2022, Wembley Arch was painted in the colors of Ukrainian flag in solidarity gesture. That's what we were told. There was no outrage. There was no criticism. We all appreciated that. But when football fans displayed a large Free Palestine tifo during a Champions League match between PSG and Atletico Madrid this week, a person no less than a French minister reacted with outrage. He wrote on Twitter, and I quote, "I asked the PSG to explain itself and the clubs to ensure that politics does not come to damage sport, which must always remain a ferment of unity. This tifo had no place in this stadium, and such messages are also prohibited by the regulations of the league and UEFA. If this were to happen again, we will have to consider banning tifos for clubs that do not enforce the rules." End of quote. Asking for freedom from colonial powers during a football match is a crime for these clowns? Did you ever see this supporter of war crimes and genocide to ever tweet against the genocide in Gaza? No. So from the Western world to all key global institutions, including the UN, the ICC and the ICJ and sporting bodies, everyone has failed the Palestinians. History will not remember them kindly. And our humble efforts, such as this video, will ensure that our future generations do not forget how the very people and institutions who preached morality and rule of law had actively participated in the mass murder of a race called Palestinian Arabs. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of this movement. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.